And here's my hottest take. Please don't turn off the video. I actually like chip damage. What is up, everyone? It's your boy Gil here, and let's talk about the Tekken 8 closed network test that happened over the last 2 weekends. I was very fortunate to be able to play 10 hours on both the PC version and the PS5 version for about 20 hours in total, maybe a bit more on PS5. I spent most of my time playing Leroy Smith, and I spent some extra time just like exploring characters like Asuka, Paul, Brian, Jin, Jun, and Kazuya. Not the entire cast, because I wanted to spend most of my time playing matches with Leroy and just like really figure out how the match flow feels. My first impression with the game was on PS5, which, was a great first impression. I was really excited, I was really hyped. I was so hyped that even like Kazuya's red glowing eye for a moment got me turned. But then, I started actually playing. I was pleasantly surprised that there was a basic tutorial, which is nice for folks that don't watch every Tekken 8 YouTube video or every developer tweet and doesn't know about the heat system before coming into the game. And it's a pretty basic tutorial. And then also, of course, it lets you practice combos in a basic sort of training mode thing. Most of the settings are grayed out and you can't access them, but one of the settings was actually frame data. You couldn't engage it. It was also grayed out, but it's good to know that we'll probably get frame data day one, and probably don't have to pay $4.99 or however much it was in Tekken 7. But yeah, for first impressions, backdashes, everyone keeps talking about it. They are all right. They feel a bit worse than in Tekken 7, and I think most of them are generally slightly nerfed, but it's not super crazy, except for like King, who has an abhorrent backdash. Kazuya probably to me had one of the better ones and felt very similar to his Tekken 7 one. The thing that kind of like feels most weird about the backdashing, it seems in Tekken 8 that a lot of characters gain the brunt of their backwards movement towards the end of the animation, so that means that your cancel basically needs to happen later or slower, which you get used to pretty fast. Maybe I want something to change about the backdashes where it just feels better. Whether it actually moves better or not, I don't know. I come from older Tekken games, so usually I'm down for better backdashes, but whatever they want to do, as long as it just feels better. These are just some brief thoughts. The side steps, you've probably already heard it, or you've probably already played it or seen it on streams and stuff. The side steps are definitely better, which makes up for the worst backdashes. Well, I'm not sure if it's actually the side steps that are better, or if more moves have lost some tracking properties. So yeah, I wanted to organize my thoughts in two main pieces. I wanted to talk about the game in a technical sense, with the netcode, optimization, load times, and that sort of stuff. And then, of course, gameplay thoughts, which I love to talk about. Anyways, PS5 felt most consistent, and PC kind of felt bad. I have a pretty decent PC. I wrote down my specs right here in my notes. I got a AMD Ryzen 3600 CPU, AMD Radeon 6750 GPU, and I got 16 gigabytes of RAM, so it's a pretty decent PC. But as soon as you start playing the game, you notice it's super stuttery. Mega stuttery. If you played quite a few PC games in the last couple of years, you're probably familiar with the stutter. First I thought it was just me, but then I was checking with friends in Discord and on Twitter, but it seemed that most people came to the conclusion that the game has shader compilation issues, where every time there's a new effect or a new animation for the very first time, this is just layman's terms, correct me if I'm wrong, but every time there's something happening on the screen for the first time, it basically has to load or unpack that for the first time on your computer, which then after the same effect happens a second time, it does not have to do that. So everything that happens for the first time makes it choppy. A lot of PC issues have that. A lot of PC games have that issue, and a lot of them solve it by just having a pre-compilation step before you really start playing the game. Anyways, we're getting too inside baseball on PC stuff. but it was a bit disappointing. Of course, after a couple hours of playing, all of those stutters go away, but hopefully that will be something that they'll prioritize with the main release. And we don't even have a release date. PS5, of course, didn't have those issues. The main difference I found, besides the shader compilation stuff, was that on PS5, matchmaking was just quicker. Even over the weekend, where you could only matchmake with PS5 players, it was matchmaking quite a bit faster than PC, but I'm sure it's kind of like something that they're working on. On PC, I would have to wait like maybe 3-4 times as long for a match. But yeah, after I played enough and turned down my settings to mostly high, the game felt great on PC. The netcode is probably the thing I'm sweating the most about. It is not proper rollback. It feels similar to Tekken 7. There's been some, everyone's netcode experience is going to be different, because you might play against different players, you might play against more Wi-Fi connections, etc., etc. And of course, I think a lot of it has been kind of clouded by people's hype. I hate to be a downer, and maybe it was just me, but it felt quite similar to Tekken 7's netcode. It's definitely better, I think. It's definitely better. I accepted all connections, whether it was Wi-Fi, whether it was wired, 3 bars, 5 bars, and Wi-Fi, I guess, like let's just talk about worst case scenario. Wi-Fi felt alright. It definitely had a delay, and it still had the same Wi-Fi stuff where, there's packet loss, and it doesn't matter how good the netcode is, it's gonna struggle if someone's playing on Wi-Fi. Rollback or not, or whatever, I just want the netcode to be better. And of course, this is one of their tests for the netcode, so it seems like they're wanting to have it be better. So we'll have to see how that goes. And of course, let them know in your feedback forms about that. Be honest, don't let hype blind you. But yeah, game runs solid. Alrighty, with the technical stuff out of the way, I got to talk about, to me, the really exciting stuff. Oh, speaking of technical stuff, the thing that's really, really cool about the game is the load times between matches are a lot shorter on both PC and PS5. Of course, if you matchmake with a PC player, it's dependent on how good their hardware is and stuff. But on average, it was about a 10-second wait time after you matchmake with them, which is super solid. And then the game has almost near instant rematching. It's not as good as Street Fighter 6 at this time, where after both players say rematch it, boom, you're just in there. It's just like a frame of black screen. With Tekken 8, it's like 1 or 2 seconds, so it's near instant, but it's cool. You don't have to do the get ready for the next battle like in Tekken 7 after every online match, which just easily adds like a minute in between each match, which really adds up of just twiddling your thumbs or scrolling on Twitter. Anyways, let's talk about the gameplay part of things. Obviously, it's still a work in progress. This test was made to test the netcode primarily, so I'm sure it's not their focus. But I still think, of course, it's important to talk about the gameplay because it's a fighting game. My overall feeling after playing it for so long is that it feels quite iterative to Tekken 7, which makes sense. People always call it a legacy game. If you know how to play Tekken Tag 1, Tekken 3, you probably are pretty decent at Tekken 7, even if you've never touched it. And I think that will still continue with 8. For me, I was hoping for a bit more of I just wanted the game to feel quite a bit different. Just give us something very new. And the game feels most different in heat states and with the heat systems. But then anything not related to heat feels very similar. And I'm not sure what's to do about that. But I'm not a developer, but maybe that'd be cool for them to look into. And here's my hottest take. Please don't turn off the video. I actually like chip damage. Chip damage doesn't do quote-unquote actual damage. It deals like gray health damage. I agree with most people that the chip damage is too extreme. I'm sure you guys have seen clips of Asuka just she's in the heat and she's doing her big swinging attack on block, and she takes like an eighth of your HP away on block. But you know, I like the idea of chip damage and being able to recover it by going back on the offense. Just the numbers need to be tuned. I had a pretty cool idea of like, because first I thought chip damage out of heat state was actually attached to moves that were plus on block moves, which I thought was really cool, because, you know, for new Tekken players, new fighting game players, it's kind of hard for them to know when something's plus unless they have a lot of experience, you know. It's not like immediately apparent if something is plus. And I thought, it's like, oh, okay, this move deals chip damage, a character glows orange for a second when they block one of those moves, and that will mean that it's plus on block. But I played for a while longer, and I noticed that non-plus plus on block moves were dealing chip damage. So maybe that's just the easy solution. Just have plus on block moves deal chip damage. I think it will make it easier for newcomers to learn. I don't think it really dumps things down. You chill out on the chip damage in that regard. And then in heat state, everything deals chip damage. That definitely needs to get toned down. I played a lot of Leroy. One of his unique attributes is that many of his machine gun strings, they deal significant chip damage. You know, maybe keep it with him to an extent because that's his unique thing, but in general it needs to go down big time, definitely in heat. So hopefully they'll do that. And then of course with my gameplay critique here, I'm less focused on individual balance things. I'm mainly looking at total system mechanics. Did I already say that I think recoverable HP is great? I think the whole theme of the game, at least in interviews, they always talk about aggression. And that's something with Tekken 8. It feels a bit muddied. That they're so clear with that intention in interviews, but in the game it feels kind of like some things feel very aggressive, other things feel like the opposite of aggressive. But I think having recoverable HP is really cool for two reasons. It's, you know, Tekken's often known as the fighting game where you get launched once, launched twice, you're dead, or launched once into Oki, you're dead. And in that way, recoverable HP is cool because it's not just chip damage that gives you recoverable HP. It's also part of the combo damage gives you recoverable HP. So that, I think, at least conceptually to me, that's a cool way to have games be less of a blow up because people have an opportunity to regain some HP. And then also I think that actually encourages aggression because you're like, man, I need my HP back, you know? So you're gonna go in, you're gonna try to find an opening, try to get them to block because you also recover HP when they're blocking. So I really like that. Is it very intuitive? Kinda. I'm one of those folks, I kind of like Tekken to be like a game with little resource management, where the only resource management is, you know, HP, time, and clock. But you know, I'm totally open, like I said earlier, having Tekken 8 feel actually really different. So in that way, I'm a fan of recoverable HP. And just with these sort of things, the devil's in the details, the devil's in the numbers, so hopefully they'll figure something out. And then let's talk about heat stuff. Heat burst is really ignorant. Really ignorant. I had to get up from my chair a little bit there. So the way heat burst works, for those who don't know, it's just at the start of the round, you can just enter heat by using a heat burst. Heat burst is just a very chunky mid attack and has quite a bit of range. Seems to have really fast startup too. And on hits, I think just like in a neutral, I think it just deals a chunk of damage. In combos, it gives like a sort of bound effect, but just like if they're just standing, I think it's just a chunk of damage. Or they can like not complete the attack. You can like tap back during the animation, and your character just enters heat without the attacking portion. So you know you're less susceptible to getting whiff punished and stuff by using your heat burst. But I think heat burst is super ignorant. Myself and many other players, they started to just like be like, okay, I'm just gonna round start heat burst, and they gotta hold this shit. And it's just like, It's ignorant in two ways, I think. It just puts you in your very powered up state with very little risk. I was really trying to whiff punish heat bursts, and I was just not able to. Maybe I suck, but it was really a focus for me for most of my sessions. And then also, the thing about heat burst that the developers did to kind of balance it, so it seems like they're aware of it, is if you enter heat by using a burst, your remaining heat timer is actually reduced. It's not the full heat timer. You only get the full heat timer if you enter it through a heat engager. But still, I feel like the heat timer reduction is like, it doesn't feel like it reduces your heat time enough for how ignorant the move is. So it's hard to punish, but also it's just basically free plus frames. Because I don't know the exact number. It doesn't feel super extreme. Maybe like +5 or so, maybe more. But it just puts you in your powered up state for basically no risk. Plus frames in someone's face. And it just doesn't feel good. And I guess, you know, the developers thought like, oh, both players have access to this. But it just feels too ignorant. I'll talk about like my fixes to it. Let's talk about my fixes to it right now. For Heat Burst, I'd love to see a version that is more punishable on whiff, and also that's just not plus and block. Maybe neutral, but honestly, you know, like you're spending something that has giga range, fast startup, and it puts you into your powered state. If a character's in heat, guys, that character is scary, dude. That character is super scary, and especially with being plus and block, and every character gets a heat smash out while they're in heat state, and heat smash is either a very powerful low or very powerful mid. So like it increases your character's mix-up strength a lot, the scariness of your mix-up. And I really think just having to be plus and block is just, it's just too ignorant, you know. It's kind of like a just do it button, kind of like rage drives, and there's very few reasons not to do it. So I talked enough about heat burst. Heat engagers, I actually kind of like conceptually. Heat engagers, that's how you get the full length of your heat bar, and it's either, there's like, every character has like 5 moves that are heat engagers. If you hit someone with the engager, that's when you get that very extreme, like, character sprints in, the other character's like, oh, my head. And you have mega plus frames, and you're in heat. And in that way, like, I like it conceptually because you actually have to hit your opponent. You have to hit your opponent with specific moves. Because with Heat Burst, you can just do it in neutral. You can just have it blocked. Or with a Heat Engager, sometimes it's like a Punisher. Whether a block punish or a whiff punish. And I think that's cool. It's more rewarding. That makes sense, you know, because you're just not like, I'ma do it. Sometimes you do. Like, sometimes, like, your heat engager, like with Leroy, it's just down 1+2. It's this like long range downwards chop, and that's kind of a move you can throw out just kind of randomly in the neutral from time to time. But the main issue I have with heat engagers is just the state that happens right after the heat engager happens, which is the sprinting into your opponent's face. And I don't know the exact numbers, but I've played Tekken for a long time, and I can kind of intuit how plus or minus a move is. And a heat engager, man, that shit's at least like +10, probably like +15. You know, even though you have better sidesteps, you can't sidestep the mix-up afterwards. And again, they're like in their powered up state, so they have a scarier mix-up. Backdashing, like, you can't backdash out of the mix-up because they're just literally right in your face, so you can't make enough distance. And then the only thing that's really left, it's just like block mid or block low, and that's it. You know, like, you can power crush which they encourage you to do more. But you know, a power crush still only calls out a mid or a high. It doesn't call out a low. It's so plus that like there was a period every time someone heat engaged on me, I would just go for a low crushing move with Leroy, just so I could do some learning. And you know, low crushing moves, you need to have a certain amount of frames before the move enters the low crush animation, the low crush portion of it. And every time someone went for a low, I would get counter hits. So it's like super plus, and I don't know, maybe I'm baby brained, but to me it really feels like it's just mid or low. And you know, it's just very reductive. It happens pretty often in the game. And for me, Tekken is like the game of like options, you know. You can deal with someone's offense in so many ways, you know, sidestep, blocking, interrupting, whatever, you know, turn stealing. It just feels, it's just too simple. And I don't think it feels particularly great for me if I'm the person benefiting of the heat engager. The only enjoyment I get out of it is like, haha, hold this mix up. This shit is cheap. But after a while, that's just gonna become kind of boring to me. It's frustrating for the person happening to who it happens to. Because, you know, in fighting games, it's very important to find the right balance between it needs to be fun for you to do, but it also needs to not be horrible to inflict on someone over and over again. And I really don't think it's particularly fun for the person doing it, and I think it's super frustrating for the person it's happening to. The decision making is not complex. So again, kind of similar to Heat Burst, I'd like to see a version of Tekken 8 that just changes those values. Just an idea, you know, like Heat Burst, -5 on block, you know, and then a Heat Engager, +5, you know. So, something like that, you know. You still get a chunky mix-up. You're still like getting your full heat timer. You still have your like crazy moves while you're in heat, but there's just more options for both players to consider. Then I want to speak briefly on combos. I'm pretty split on the combos in Tekken 8 and also in Tekken 7. I usually feel like sometimes I'm like on the side of wanting combos to be shorter, just like launch 2-3 hits, done. Because it's fun to do a combo in Tekken 8 that uses a heat burst, a heat dash, and then a tornado. There's some fun decision making to be had with that. When do you use this, and calculating the distances, and it looks really cool. But it also goes on for quite a long time, and you know, it's not particularly fun for the opponent. Of course, you know, execution is fun, and it's a way for you to express yourself, and some players are going to do insane combos, and some combos, you know, if you're watching it, you know, as a spectator, you're like, oh, he could drop it, so it's really cool in that way, you know, having long and complex combo systems. But then on the other way, for me personally, I like doing cool combos, but for me, the meat and potatoes of Tekken is just the ground game, the Oki game, where like both the players are really interacting with one another, because you know, while you're getting comboed on in Tekken 7 and Tekken 8, the person that's getting comboed on, they can basically, you know, check their watch for like 2 or 3 seconds, you know, or even longer, and they don't have to really do a whole lot of thinking during it. So I feel split about it, so I'm not going to make any big calls on it what I want. But for me, definitely, like, the most interesting part of Tekken is that ground game, you know, moving around each other, keeping each other out, mind games and stuff. Maybe I want to share some words on Rage. Rage in Tekken 8 still exists, still increases your damage for a bit. I don't know the exact percentage. Still gives you a Rage art. In the alpha tests, Rage arts were -13 on block, which a lot of people didn't like, and it seems like it's definitely been nerfed. They've also acknowledged the nerf in one of the interviews. It's like -15 on block at least right now. I've always been able to launch a Rage art. Rage arts have an additional utility in the game where it removes all of the remaining gray health on someone, which is pretty cool. But outside of that, rage kind of feels like an afterthought, especially after coming from Tekken 7, where you also have rage drives. Maybe it's good that rage is so simple, because there's already like quite a few things going on with the heat system. But maybe there's something else that they can do with it. I was thinking about some like crazy thing if they keep the oppressiveness of heat burst, heat engager. Oh, also heat smashes. I'm gonna post this video. This video is gonna play here on the screen. There's this YouTuber. I think it's called. They're called Deadly Scorpion. They recorded a video of heat smashes. That's a powered up move you can do out while you're in heat state, which is also super ignorant. You know, most of them are like giga attacks with very big range, and then they put you like plus 10 in someone's face, and you ate a lot of chip damage blocking it, which should be the correct thing. But then they're right in your face with more than plus 10 frames, and you still have to eat a mix-up. So I'm glad I didn't forget like heat smashes. Man, you know. At least like you end your heat state after it, so it might be kind of fine. I'm like less mad about heat smashes, but it's definitely something to like pay attention to. And I'll also link that video. It's just a 2-minute video. You'll see it here on the screen too. But yeah, you know, I think those were my thoughts. I'm glad to have given it a shot. The game doesn't have a due date yet, doesn't have a release date yet, so a lot of things are going to change, and just, you know, keep giving Bamco your honest feedback, respectfully, politely. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. Let me know what your hot takes are on the game. What did you find most fun about playing Tekken 8, or what did you find most fun about watching it? And once again, I really appreciate you guys watching. Catch me on a live stream someday. Watch some more of my YouTube videos. I'm really making a lot right now. And know that I appreciate you watching. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.